Drink a beer and support a Griz athlete. DraftWorks is a longtime favorite of beer enthusiasts across the Treasure State, and DraftWorks has created a sessionable, delicious lager that donates part of every sale to the name, image, and likeness efforts at the University of Montana. Up with Montana Lager is a crisp, effervescent beer that pours pale straw in color and greets you with an inviting malty aroma, and it's crafted with Griz athletes in mind. If you're headed to the tailgate or stocking up to watch football, give back to the NIL Collective at the University of Montana by drinking Up with Montana Lager, proudly created by DraftWorks Brewing.
Bleed. We keep on recapping everything that happened in the football season. It seems like it's years ago and also just yesterday. But our ESPN Roundtable guest this week, Kyle Hansen. He works at KPAX Television and Scripps Sports. He did a great job on the sidelines all year for the Griz, but then also got to experience Nashville with all the rest of us. So over under 6 less years of life expectancy for us if Tootsie's was a bar that existed in the town we lived in.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, probably under, right?
Oh, yeah, dude. We're living a decade less time if that was a bar that we could go to all the time. We probably wouldn't have had as much fun, though, too, if it wasn't such a novelty. But that place was crazy, man. That was so sweet.
You take it for granted, and like it was definitely a spot that probably for you too, people had like suggested. They're like, just go check it out. Like the live music there is sweet. No one told me ahead of time that it had 3 stages on each level and floor. And so getting there and realizing that places in Nashville did this was crazy. It was so cool. And like all of the live music was cool when you're on Broadway, but I was like, this place has 3 bands playing and I can't hear the other ones. Like it just sounds so good. It was so cool.
Well, as people that do live broadcasts, we understand like the sound engineering behind that is wild, right? To have 3 bands playing at full blast, and you can seriously be on the second floor. You're like 10 stairs away from the bottom floor. Yeah. And you can't hear the bottom floor. You can hear the second floor perfectly. And then there's another band up top. The engineering of that place is wild, man. Unreal.
It was awesome. It was like Garth Brooks on floor 1, Blink-182 on floor 3, and Five Finger Death Punch on floor 2. You know what I mean? Like all these cover bands. It was crazy. So that was cool, man. That was one of the cooler hot spots. And then, as you know, too, the Ryman. What a place, right? How cool was that?
Yeah, we went to church. Kyle went on Friday. We went on Saturday. Samuel Kim has never been to a concert before, so that was his first concert of his life. He walked out there. He's like, "Man, that was pretty fun." I was like, "Okay, so that's not how all concerts are. You're not going to hear like voices of angels singing like in this most perfectly acoustically amazing place." I was like, "We got to go to the Kettle House this summer. We'll have a normal, real concert experience."
Yes.
But yeah, the Ryman was awesome too, man.
Oh, loved it. Yeah, it was neat. Yeah, because you guys, I know it was Vince Gill and Steve Earle when you guys were there, right? And then some of the other like ancillary acts and whatnot. We had Vince Gill the night we went. And I couldn't believe it. Like you said, it's just like I love that for Sammy that his expectations are now literally as high as they can be. So I just hope I hope he understands that when he goes to some other show in the future.
I know. I was explaining to him. I was like, okay, here's the deal, man. You just saw one of the premier male vocalists in the history of music. At one of the most iconic venues. So, all right, everything else is never going to live up to that. So at least you peaked. At least you peaked on your very first show. Maybe just never go to a concert again. Maybe that's
right for sure. Right? Yeah, just end it here.
But overall, just the game being in Nashville, what did you think? I mean, I'm of a strong opinion they have to figure out a way to keep it there. What do you think?
I completely agree. Yeah, and I liked Frisco. I thought
Frisco,
does a good job. Like I liked that stadium. I liked that stadium was easier to fill, because that's the argument you're juggling with, right? With this level of football is you're like, okay, well, you don't want to put them, if it moved to Vegas, for instance, you don't want to put them at the Death Star because it's going to feel cavernous,
Right.
And so I liked that Frisco had that ability. I thought the town embraced it really well. But man, Nashville did with this game that I think you're supposed to do, which is make it an event and kind of make it a little bit of a party. You know what I mean? You have to make it like a singular. It has to stand out from the other championships in college athletics or pro sports. And I think that's exactly what they did. I loved what they did there. I think the 3 they're weighing right now are, what is it? It's Frisco, Nashville, and Vegas. And I think either you keep it in Nashville or you find a way to put it in Vegas. I don't know if you can go back to Frisco after what they did in Nashville.
Well, I think the other argument too, and this is just from the pure football standpoint, and Brent Vegan talked about this quite a bit, is the field. The actual field is a soccer pitch in Frisco, and it's a great field. It's a pro stadium. Pro soccer players weigh 150 pounds. When it's Montana State, North Dakota State, you got 600 pounds of man hitting each other like this. It just rips the field to shreds. And if there's any moisture, which there was at least twice in the last 4 times we've been there, it's just it impacts the game in a negative way. Like there's only a few places that still play on grass, and that's in beautiful places like Davis, California. If you're not playing in California or Florida, you can't be playing on grass. So I think that the pure on-field football, Nashville was better just because it's a football stadium. I think that was just better for the quality of the game, the quality of the ball.
Agreed. Yeah, the turf was just such a huge improvement, I thought as well. And then like in the future, if you get a matchup where it's the Montanas or North Dakota State, South Dakota State, it will sell out. I was
Right.
very impressed by what the MSU contingent brought, and I think even more people will go in the future. But then Illinois State, I thought, showed up well too. So all in all, it being close to downtown, it was the events were all, wrapped around like iconic venues downtown and like hot spots around downtown. And then, like you said, the football product was really, really good too. So I mean, if you're Nashville and you're the NCAA and whoever put this on, I mean, it really was a slam dunk, especially with the whole being on a Monday where you weren't competing with Monday Night Football, for the first time or competing with the NFL in general. I just don't think you could have asked for a better deal because I mean, afterwards, and you probably saw this, it was trending. It was trending on social media, the
Right.
FCS, and it helped that the game was such a tremendous game. But, you couldn't have asked for a better first showing if you're Nashville. And I just think that if you can keep it there, that's a big win.
Okay.
Life can change in an instant. If you've been hurt in an accident, suffered from medical negligence, or are facing criminal charges, you don't have to face it alone. At Ryan Miller & Coburn, we're here to listen and fight for you. We're your neighbors, traveling across Montana to stand by your side as your link to justice. Real people, real help, right here in Montana. Ryan Miller & Coburn, your Montana attorneys.
Cash One Pawn, Missoula's #1 pawn shop.
Well, you want money, we got money. You need money, we got money. We're cash.
Do yourself a favor and make Cash One Pawn part of your online shopping habits. Cash One Pawn has an awesome online inventory, everything from firearms to power tools to speaker equipment to jewelry. Visit Cash One Pawn today.
Cash One Pawn.
8720 Roller Coaster Road, CashOnePawn.com.
Hello, my name is Kelly Ayat, quarterback at the University of Montana. In the off-season, it's important to do everything you can to prepare for the season. In high school, that means funding your program. In my experience, Vertical Raise is the ultimate online fundraiser platform. Now broaden your reach of your fundraiser and bring in more money than other platforms. And there are no sneaky or hidden fees like other companies. If you're trying to raise money for your program, reach out to Vertical Raise today.
Kyle Hansen, KPAX Television, joining us here on Nuanez Now, 102.9 ESPN Radio. It's our ESPN Roundtable, probably presented by Stockman Bank of Montana. Stockman Bank, Montana's brand of banking. So on that note then, I've been arguing, and part of this is just because of sort of my position in the Montana media as somebody that covers both teams, both Montana and Montana State heavily. But just as a Montanan as well, I think Montana State winning is an objective win for the state of Montana and the Big Sky Conference. I know there's a lot of Griz people that are very salty about the fact that the Cats won, but I think that's good because I think it's a thing that can propel you forward and sort of give you the desire to get to that point yourself. And all I kept thinking when we were in Nashville was, man, this is sweet. Man, what a great turnout by the Bobcats. And holy cow, how cool would this be if the Griz got here? And then I started thinking about, well, what if these two teams played each other in Nashville? I mean, burn it down. 50,000 Montanans going around downtown Nashville. That might be the end of the city. But either way, I just think it's an objectively good thing for the state of Montana because it is. It's the exposure. And I think right now where we're at in college football with so much stuff that's happened at the top level being so hard for people to absorb and compartmentalize. When you got Carson Beck making $6 million to quarterback Miami, that you can love Miami and still think that's weird. That the guy that's a college kid is making millions of dollars to play what is supposed to be amateur athletics. So I just thought that it was a great moment for the FCS. I think because it was on Monday, there's no Monday Night Football. Yeah, Pat McAfee tweeting about it. You got, all these national media guys. It's trending on social media. And then you add in the fact that it was a Montana school that won it for the first time in 24 years. I think it's good for the league. It's good for the state. And I think it's good for the rivalry. But what do you think?
I completely agree with you all across the board. I think especially it's really good for the Big Sky to break through in a way like that. I mean, because they've been knocking on the door, and it blows my mind every time when we're like the last Big Sky team to win it was Eastern in 2010 with Bo Baldwin, and
Right.
that doesn't feel like it was that long ago, but then you look at it and you're like, man, 2010, that's
Right.
crazy.
Right.
So I completely agree, because I'm with you, where like competition's only gonna help others rise. So if you're the Griz, you see your rival beat you twice, and then they go win a national championship. If I'm the fans, I go, well, wait, we want to do that. We want to get our get back. You don't want to just roll over and give up, right? And then, same with the rest of the league. I mean, Davis was knocking on the door as well, to getting, it was kind of a back alleyway to getting where no one expected them. And all of a sudden they're knocking on the door. And then you have some of these other teams that have the facilities, have the ability to do it. North Dakota State watched South Dakota State go back to back and then came back and won another national championship, so you see your rivals do these things, and then other people in your league that have the capability. So I think it's huge. I think it's great. And I think, during the game, it was just kind of one of these things where, like, as they were chipping away, I thought the whole time the Bobcats were going to win this game, even as the Redbirds were chipping away. And boy, Illinois State was so much fun to watch. But it was like creeping in my head where I was like, man, we're at another one of these events where it's a big event and the team we're covering or the person we're covering, because I liken this game to the Sean O'Malley fight in Boston where he won, right? He was the underdog and no one expected him to win. It was creeping in my mind like, oh God, we're going to cover another one of these where they lose, and then it's going to be like, all right, who's going to break through? But them winning, and the scene afterwards was so special. And I agree with you. Objectively a good thing for the state, and objectively a good thing for the Big Sky.
Yeah, because I wonder about this stuff all the time, because the Big Sky Conference is in a position in football where it is certainly one of the best leagues in the country. But I think because it gets the most media coverage, then it's projected as the best. But you can't say you're the best unless you win the national championship. And going into that game, all I kept thinking about was if Illinois State wins, they'll be the third Missouri Valley school to win in the last 15 years. It will also give the Missouri Valley 13 national championships, which is twice as many as the Big Sky has had. And oh, by the way, the Missouri Valley was invented in 2008. The Big
Right.
Sky's been playing in the Division I AA since 1978 and have been playing as a conference since 1963. So what ground do you actually have to stand on? It is a weird conundrum too for us in our position, because we cover these teams so well and so hard. And then you get there and you like the climax is watching them fail in the biggest moments. And it's just so hard to do that over and over and over again. So like I always tell people, we don't have any rooting interest in any of this, but you don't go across the country to cover the team that you have covered all year long to watch them lose. So I'm very happy that Montana State won, just for the state of the conference, and just for sort of the monkey off the back. Now it isn't a 15-year streak. Now we can just talk about 2025.
Yes, and you can see, okay, who's going to break through next, right? Because what if they get a couple of championships here, and whether it be the Bobcats, the Griz, or somebody else break through, and look at the Big Sky season as a whole this year. I mean, you got to call it what it is, right? The league was weak. The
Right.
league
Top
struggled.
heavy and weak for sure.
100%, and the last several years we're so used to them putting 5, 6 teams in the playoffs, only 3 of them this year, but those 3 made the quarterfinal round at least, and Davis still almost broke through into the semis. And so you have to like hang your head on that a little bit, but it's like the league struggled, and then to come out of that when they've had better years objectively in the past to get a championship, and teams will turn around. I mean, we talk about like Idaho all the time has woken up finally. This Weber State hiring is going to be very interesting. I kind of love the Cal Poly hiring. I'll be curious if that's
Yeah.
going to turn things around in that program as well. So there'll be some changes here and there, but you just, like you said, it's like you fly across the country and you want to tell good stories. And for once, the good story was we got to tell the Bobcats won. The Bobcats won the national championship. This is why. This is the streak they broke. This is the season they had. And, it's about telling good stories. And a lot of people you and I know in both communities who care a lot about this. And it was fun to get a chance to witness that and be a part of it. And, we've been covering these kids forever, man. I mean,
Right.
I was covering Kenneth Iden when I was at the Billings Gazette. So,
Totally, right?
it was fun seeing him get to have that moment, be the first guy to hold the trophy up, and just fun to see those guys get that moment. And I think I'm a little soft sometimes because I want everybody to have those moments.
Right.
So it was nice. The Bobcats were the first ones to break through with that.
I know, it's so funny. I talked to Paul Brott immediately in the aftermath, and he's going crazy. He's celebrating. I said, "Congratulations, man, good job." And I said, "You remember the first time I ever interviewed you?" He goes, Hell yeah, I do. It was after we lost the state championship, and I was so mad at you for making me do that. And I was like, yeah, man, that was brutal. And I remember you being like a 17-year-old kid, and you were so upset. I said, guess what? Now I get to interview you after the national championship because this is much better. So
Right.
it is cool when you get to cover the guys all the way through, um, from high school on through. But again, back to circle back on the Montana thing, I think that if you're the Griz, you look at this and you say, okay, here's the places where we aren't keeping pace with our rival, but here's the places where we are as well. And I know that there was a huge fallout, and this is the way that fan bases work, especially crazy, passionate fan bases like the Griz fan base. And you lose your rival twice in a month, and you have to deal with both Thanksgiving and Christmas getting smack talked to you by the other side of the rivalry. I think it's hard on the fans. I think they were pretty sensitive about this by the time this is all said and done. But I do think you can use this for positive if you're the Grizz. So I mean, how do you attack this if you're Montana? What are the things that you sort of go after to get to put yourself in the position that Montana State was in this year?
So I think when you look at the Cats formula, right, of why they've been so good the last several years and why they finally broke through is obviously recruiting is such a huge part of this. And the guys they have found, kind of the gems they've found both in the state and then outside the state, because I'm a big believer in in-state recruiting, but I also don't think it's the be all end all. And I think,
Sure.
I kind of wish fans would be a little more careful on that because I think it's kind of insulting to the out-of-state guys who make a big impact,
Sure.
and I just think like when I went to school at the University of Arizona, and Montana and Montana State are completely different. I recognize that in this, but no one cared if they had a recruit from the state of Arizona.
Sure.
Are you good at football? Are you good at basketball? Is basically, and are you a good person? Is basically the question. You know what I mean? And so Montana's so different in that it's kind of what makes it special. But it's like you have to recognize the kids like Justin Lamson and Julius Davis, and Dane Steele, who made the craziest plays I've ever seen, aren't from Montana, and that's okay. They chose to come here and be part of this. And I think the fans need to like recognize that a little bit more. Like, look, these guys chose to come to these schools. Appreciate them for that.
Totally.
You know what I mean? They wanted to be part of this culture. It doesn't matter if they're from the state or not. Now, I don't think you should let in-state talent slip away because you
Sure.
have both facilities, you have the advantages at both places. So I think it has to start there. Some of these guys that the Cats have found are just unbelievable players, and they've got some legacy guys on their team that weren't going to go to the Griz, but you have to find some of those hidden gems a little bit. Like Cole Taylor is, I mean, I'm blown away by him every time I watch him play live. I think
He's
he
amazing.
is a sweet linebacker, and like he's just one of these guys like freak athlete in high school. I remember watching his games when he was quarterback at CMR, and it's kind of like Tommy Mellott, where I was like, man, he's a great athlete and a great player. I'll be curious to see how it works out. And then lo and behold, the Cats find them, develop them, and that's where it's at. So I think it's recruiting, it's development, and I mean, it's kind of tried and true, but just the lines, right? I mean, it starts in the lines where like I think the offensive and defensive lines for the Cats elevate a lot of other position groups on those teams or on that team. And I think the Griz should look at that formula because the Griz are so special on offense right now. You need the offensive line that's going to catapult, that group. And they had some good offensive linemen this last year, but they had their struggles. It sucks that you lose Colin Amick because I thought he was going to be a guy like that. But then defensively, I mean, you're just gonna have to plug a lot of holes. I can't, one returning starter, after no returning starters a year ago. Now a lot more reserves have played, so I'll be curious to see how it works. But I think it just starts with recruiting and development at the end of the day. And the Cats just had their machine, man, and I think that's where it's at. How about you?
Everything at the local dispensary and mercantile is local. Yes, everything. All the products, from flour to CBD to glass, are either grown or blown locally. Everything you will find in the store is from a local farmer or a local vendor. All the people that spearheaded the shops years ago are also local to Missoula. The Local has the highest quality green products you'll find anywhere in the Garden City. And with 2 locations, convenient shopping is easy. Swing by the Local at East Missoula or downtown on the corner of Front and Orange where there's free parking. And remember, keep it local.
Jewelry Design Center. We want to be your jeweler for life.
I think that's a great thought because I think the number one advantage to having in-state guys beyond just what it means to them and all that is the fact that they're more prone to stay
Yeah,
in this modern day. Like Taco Dell announced earlier this week that he's staying. Uh, I think that if he's from Ohio or California or something, I think he's probably going to Oregon or Washington. But he's from Billings, and so he's staying in Montana. And I
totally.
think that it's not just what it means to you, but it's also just like the personal connections and the business connections. And he's going to run his camps this summer. I'm sure he's going to make a good amount of money off of that. He's the most famous guy in the state right now. So all those things play. I think it's a retention strategy to get the in-state guys. But I
Totally.
also think now, because it is so easy to leave, at some point the fans just have to consider the guys that stay for more than 3 years as just being de facto in-state guys. Like Eli Gilman's coming back. He's from Minnesota, but he's lived his formative years in Montana. Like, isn't this guy a Montanan now? Like, can't he be like an honorary Montanan? I mean, he's lived here for 5 years and he's only 22 years old or 23 years old or whatever. He becomes an honorary Montana. Or like Kale, yeah, he grew up in Hawaii. But the dude has been thinking about and living Griz football, I'm sure, since he was a kid, right? Like I imagine his dad was watching the games on Saturdays and at least keeping up with it. And I'm sure he was wearing Griz gear at school and stuff. So like, does it actually matter that he's not from Helena and he's from Honolulu? I don't really think it does. Like, because I think that guy becomes an honorary Montanan. Like Titan Fleischman, same thing at Montana State, right? He's from Pocatello, but the guy's going to be a seventh year captain next year. He's a Montanan at this point, right? He becomes an honorary Montanan. So I agree with you. I also think that there's some guys coming up through the ranks too for the Griz that there's been so much made of I talked about this on Tuesday's show. There's been so much made of the Griz transfer influx. And it's been a thing that they've had to do to sort of bridge the gap. But then they have recruited at the high school level pretty well outside of the state. And they've gotten some good in-state guys too. Like the three guys I pointed to on Tuesday's show that were from in-state that I think could be good guys are Grady Walker from Sentinel, Kashko Kachia from Glacier, Isaac Kime from Glacier. Like all three of those guys were really good players at the double A level, like on par with the guys that the Cats got. So they just had to sort of wait their turn. If now they're redshirt sophomores, maybe this is their chance. But they've also gotten some great out-of-state guys. Like if Colton Lentz was from Montana instead of Nooksack Valley, Washington, people would be over the moon about this guy. But because he's from a small school in Washington, people just don't know about him. But the dude was like a four-star recruit, and he's like a really high-level guy. So there's just examples of that I think on both rosters. And I agree with you. I think it's not necessarily an in-state versus out-of-state. It's just a pure recruiting, right? Like the Griz have recruited very well in certain areas and very poorly in certain areas. And I don't know if it's as much about where they're from rather than what position they play and how they develop them.
Right. And the development part's the key element there too, right? Because you can get these guys who are supposed to be insane, and if you
Right.
can't develop them to what they're doing, because I found out down in Nashville, like Braden Zimmer, the left tackle for the Cats, like no D1 offers, coming out of Billings West. But Brent Vegan and his staff are so good at identifying offensive line talent. They
Right.
just pointed at him and said, nope, he's going to be the real deal. Lo and behold, freshman All-American. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so it's you gotta notice it and you gotta develop it. And I completely agree with you on the retention part for sure, where it's like, you're noticing like the Montana kids just aren't leaving, right? And had Vegan left to Oregon State or Colorado State, maybe we would have seen some guys follow him and but that would have made sense. But we're not seeing guys like have the breakout year and then peace out to get a big NIL deal, which I'm not knocking. I mean, anybody can do this, but the Montana guys are staying because they're from here and it means a little bit more. So I do agree with you there in the recruitment. That's a key thing you have to weigh, because if you don't want guys to leave, keep the guys who are going to stay no matter what. So it's interesting. Yeah, I'll be curious, because Colton Lentz is going to be a stud next year, right? Like
Yeah, right.
just hearing about him all year, kind of in the background. They finally started running him a little bit on special teams, and I was like, and then the Beaner twins, and
Yep.
the three of them, I believe, were a package deal coming to Montana together, because I think Brady had a Boise State offer and Colton might have as well. But Brock didn't, and they wanted to all play together, and they came here. So it's like you look at guys like that, and then you look at Ayat. I mean, there's a prime example of recruiting and development. I remember being on your show, and he was my breakout player, which felt like a cop out answer picking the quarterback, but then lo and behold, he was magical this last year, which was fun. And so I think it'll just be interesting how they handle it. I do like some of the guys they've gotten to commit as far as transfers. I think getting Hayden Hanks, the Thompson Falls kid, to come back that's another interesting element here, kind of like Finn Ridgway last year from Whitefish. Like, how is he going to develop as a local guy who went somewhere else and is coming back? I don't know. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch and track how this goes. But they've got some guys kind of waiting in the wings and some young guys. And Amick kind of fell in that too. And some of these other offensive linemen that came in as 3 stars. It's going to be interesting to see if they start cracking through now that, a veteran-laden team has kind of opened up on the offensive line for them.
The other thing I said earlier this week is that I think that where you're from has a big factor into if you stay or not, but also what position you play. Because I think fans should just prepare themselves if you have a stud young offensive lineman or corner that those or even an edge guy, those guys are out. Like they're just going to get offered too much money for you to be able to keep them. It was unsurprising to me that Amick played 5 games and still got a Power 5 offer because like that's just what it is. He's 6'5" and he's got high pedigree. And Keon Loud, same thing. He played in 4 or 5 games this year, but he's out because he's getting hundreds of thousands of dollars to go to the ACC. So I think you got to prepare yourself for that. But I also think if you have guys like linebackers and running backs and receivers, those guys are way more dime a dozen. The supply and demand is just different for those positions. Okay, last thing for you. What do you think of just the dynamic that actually quite a few of the best players in the state of Montana decided to stay? Kaylee Ayat, Eli Gilman, Brooks Davis for the Griz, Justin Lamson, Taco Dowler, Titan Fleischman, Caden Dowler. We're assuming Adam Jones. I mean, classes start today at Montana State, and he hasn't said it one way or the other, so I'm imagining he's coming back. A lot of the headlining guys that could have come back did come back. What impact do you think that'll have on next season?
Well, I think it'll be huge, and I think it separates the Cats and Griz as far as, the early contenders once again on the Big Sky, right? You look at some of these guys. I mean, look at Illinois State, got quite a few of those guys to stick around too, which was interesting. I love it. I think it's cool because it speaks to what the programs mean to some of these guys and that they've recruited guys who they can supply them probably with some better NIL deals now because like things are kind of like situating themselves right. It's not year 1, it's year, what is this, 4 or 5 with NIL. So you kind of know what you can offer these guys and these guys are happy with it, but that these guys care. And I think it's huge because, I mean, that's what makes college football fun is the stars staying and the guys that the familiar faces that you saw last year are going to compete again next year and in theory be better because they in theory would develop more in between years. And so I think it's great. I think it's cool. And like you mentioned, like the out-of-state guys even as well, like Gilman, Ayat, Brooks Davis announcing, and then you mentioned Fleischman and Lamson. Like this is a big deal, and this is cool that these guys are going to stick around. And it says kind of where the Montana schools are at that they're able to retain some of these guys because the Griz and Cats lost a lot, especially on defense, but that's going to happen. But the fact that you can still keep some pillars and then those guys can show future guys like, look, you can stay here and get what you need is a pretty big deal, I think. And it's going to make it a lot of fun. And I'm glad that's the way it's going right now because both teams, even if they lost a couple more of those guys, I think we're going to be probably the top 2 teams in the Big Sky heading into next year.
Yo, Tara, what up, E?
What's going on? Man, those are some nice medals.
Yeah, man, these are hard to come by.
Yeah, well, I've got 2 of them.
Well, that's nothing like going to March Madness, though.
We did go to a national championship.
Okay, guys, whatever. Let's just get on the Montana party bus and head over to Press Box for lunch.
Yeah.
Nuanez now and Skyline Sports, covering Montana athletics and the Big Sky Conference better than anybody. The Montana Party Bus and the Press Box are also proud supporters of Montana athletes.
Hey, cheers to you guys, man. Cheers to Montana. Cheers to chasing more champions.
Join Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any Town Pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.
Right down the road, pump it up, yeah.
Kyle Hansen, ESPN Roundtable. You can find him. You're doing the doubleheader, right? Are you going to be the sidelines guy?
Yep, doing the courtside for the brawl this weekend in Bozeman, and yeah, should be a lot of fun.
Well, very good. 2 p.m. for the women's game, 7 p.m. for the men's game, and it should be a fun weekend in Bozeman. It never ends for us. We're going to cover the rivalry games over and over. It's Cat Griz Saturday for life for us.
Yes.
Basically 3 times in 6 weeks. I don't even know when they texted me and asked me like, "Hey, what credentials do you need?" I was like, "What? When is that happening?" They're like, "This week." I was like, "No,
Yeah.
please let it happen in a couple weeks. Can I have a break, please?" Nope.
Right.
But it's okay. We'll get it done right now, and then we'll move on. But thanks for being here, buddy. Good to see you.
Yeah, appreciate you. Thanks, Colter.
ESPN Roundtable, probably presented by Stockman Bank of Montana. Stockman Bank has locations throughout the state of Montana. They're in Montana, only in Montana, and they plan on keeping it that way. Let Stockman Bank show you Montana's brand of banking. Appreciate Stockman Bank for the continued support of the ESPN Roundtable. Thanks to Kyle Hansen of KPAX Television for taking some time. Always great to get Kyle's insight on all things in the sporting world. He does a great job there at KPAX and for Scripps Sports, so we appreciate him for hanging out with us. We'll take a break, come back on the other side. We'll keep on talking rivalry basketball. We talked to Matt Logie, the head coach of the Montana State Bobcat men earlier. Let's hear from Nate Harris, the head coach of the Lady Griz. We'll also hear from Avery Waddington as well. She's a standout sophomore there for the University of Montana women's basketball team. They're still looking for their first Big Sky Conference win. That's on the other side. Don't change that dial. Keep it right here. You listen to 102.9 ESPN.
Is it will you marry me in your future? Or maybe you do it all over again. Hi, I'm Brian Toon with Jewelry Design Center, inviting you to come see the largest selection of Will You Marry Me in the state of Montana. The brightest diamonds of every shape and size, unique settings built to last, and skilled jewelers on site offering free sizing and maintenance for life, because that's how long we want to be your jeweler. Jewelry Design Center in Missoula, on Brooks, across from the Montana Club.